welcome to Hibbert's Hangout. Today on the channel we've got a game of Marvel Crisis Protocol in which it will be the Spider Foes taking on the Web Warriors. They'll be playing at 14 threat, which is that secure threat of Sword Establisher's base on Moon's Blue area. That is 3 consoles on map C, so straight across the middle. And then the extraction is Fear Grip's world as worthy terrorized cities, which is 4 hammers on map D. So we'll show you the squads up next and then get into the game from there. Spider Foes today are of course being led by Green Goblin, but they feature Kingpin, Lizard and Dr. Octopus. Team tactics cards for those Spider Foes include Well Laid Plans, Monkey Brain as Lizard Home, Follow Me, Neogenic Recombinator, and of course Sinister Traps. Our Web Warriors today consists of the Amazing Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and Daredevil. Team tactics cards for the Web Warriors include Web Barrier, Spider Tracker, 7 Sons of Cinnabus, Aunt May's Wheat Cakes, and All Webbed Up. So here is the board for today's game, and we have the 4 hammers set up on map C, and then those 3 consoles on map D. So our Spider Foes are set up with Goblin on the building, Fisk and Lizard in the centre, and Doc Ock on the right hand side. Our Web Warriors have Spidey by the Bugle, Deadpool towards the centre, and by the Sanctum is Doctor Strange. So during the power phase of round number 1, the Spider Foes have chosen to play Sinister Traps and have placed that on their opponent's hammer. So it was Green Goblin up first for those Spider Foes, and he just did 2 mini movements to get within range of that hammer and is paying his power to pick it up. Strange went first for the Web Warriors, and he just did pretty much the same as Goblin with 2 mini movements to get within range and has paid a power to pick up that hammer. Next up for those Spider Foes was the Lizard, and he chose to ignore that hammer, leaving it up to Kingpin, and did 2 medium advances to get to the centre and interacted with that console. So then we did have Spider-Man, and he just did his 2 long movements to get within range of that console, paid his power to interact with it, and was able to secure it for the Web Warriors due to rolling a hit. So then we had Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin. He did his first short advance, stopped within range of that hammer, has paid his power, so he will be picking that up, and followed that up with a second short advance, just to get to the centre of the board. So then we had Daredevil. For his first action, he did a long movement to get to the other side of that hammer, but as he entered within 2 of it, Sinister Traps was activated, and that did 4 damage to him, leaving him with only 1 point of health remaining. And then he's been pushed away short from it, and we'll see where he goes from there for his second action. So for his second action, Daredevil has just retreated back long to the far side of the hammer, and will be paying 1 of his power to pick it up. So then we had Doc Ock to finish off round number 1, and he just did 2 medium movements to get within range of that console, paid a power to interact with it, rolled a crit, so he secured it for the Spider Foes. So here's how the board looks at the end of round number 1, with both teams having 2 hammers apiece, with Doctor Strange and Daredevil holding on to them for the Web Warriors, and Green Goblin and Kingpin for the Spider Foes. Spider Foes do, however, control more of the consoles, so we'll see where they want to resolve that push during the power phase of round number 2. So at the end of round number 1, the Spider Foes will be scoring 5 victory points due to holding 2 hammers, and then 3 points for having the majority of the consoles, as the Web Warriors will only score 2 points, and that's for holding on to their 2 hammers as we head in to round number 2. So during the power phase of round number 2, those Spider Foes got to choose who they would push, and they chose to do it on the Amazing Spider-Man, just managing to fit him through those 2 barriers. So it was Daredevil up first for those Web Warriors. He did a long movement to get within range of doing a Devil's Deliverance, did this into the Lizard and Kingpin, got through for 0 points of damage on Lizard, but still gets his short push, whereas into Kingpin, it got through for 5 damage, It would have been 6, but Kingpin spent 1 for his intense physical conditioning to reduce it down, but still 5's quite a lot, leaving him with just 2 points of health remaining. So the Lizard tried to exact some revenge. He advanced up the board and did a tail whip into Daredevil. Only got 1 success, which was a wild, so he could have pushed him if he chose, but decided to leave him there, and Daredevil was able to block all the incoming damage. Before the end of his activation, the Lizard and Kingpin have chosen to play Neogenic Recombinator, and Kingpin is going to chuck 3 points of damage into the Lizard and heal himself for that much. And so at the end of Lizard's activation, he'll heal 1 of those, so he's going to be taking 2 points of damage overall. So Doctor Strange was up for the Web Warriors, and he did a Bolts of Bedevilment into Dr. Ock, and he got through for 2 points of damage with the push. So he pushed him away short, paid a power to interact with that console to secure it for the Web Warriors, and then chose to do a second Bolts of Bedevilment into Doc Ock. This got through for 3 extra points of damage, so he's been dazed and won't be getting an activation this turn. So it was gobbling up those spider foes, and he just did 2 sets of pumpkin bombs into Spider-Man, who was just within range 4. The first did no damage, but was able to do an incinerate and bleed. The second was followed up for 4 points of damage, and also putting poison onto Spider-Man. And Green Goblin has also interacted with that console to secure it for those spider foes. So then it was Spider-Man, and he did a web swing, followed that up with a spider strike into Green Goblin, which got through for 3 points of damage. For his second action, Spider-Man's chosen to shake in that bleed, and then he's going to perhaps use a tactics card. So indeed, Spider-Man has chosen to use Aunt May's Wheat Cakes, which is paid a power and will be removing 1 point of damage. And before the end of his activation, he tried to interact with that console, roll a die, but he did only get a blank, so he was unable to convert it for the Web Warriors. To finish off our round number 2 was Kingpin, who just did 2 short advances up the board to get within contesting range of that control, should he need to do anything with it on the next round. So here's how the board looks at the end of our round number 2. So everyone's still holding onto their hammers, which is Doctor Strange and Daredevil for those Web Warriors, and for the Spider Foes it's Green Goblin and Kingpin. The change, however, was on those control centres, as instead of the right hand one, the Spider Foes now hold the left hand and centre console. So scoring for round number 2 is the same as it was for number 1, which is 5 points for the Spider Foes, taking them to 10, and only 2 for the Web Warriors, putting them on 4. As we head into round number 3, flipping the card is Doc Ock for those Spider Foes. So starting things out in round number 3 was Doctor Strange, who did a medium advance towards the centre and shot some bolts of bedevilment into the Lizard, which got through for 2 points of damage. Doctor Strange then decided to spend 3 power to heal 3 points of damage off of Daredevil. So it's over to those Spider Foes, and turns out they have some well-laid plans, as both Doc Ock and Green Goblin are spending 3 power each. So after those well-laid plans, did 0 damage to Daredevil, but it did get through for 1 point of damage to Doctor Strange, so he has dropped his hammer right next to the Lizard. So then was Doc Ock for those Spider Foes. He did a medium advance to get within secure range of that right-hand console, paid a power to interact with it and automatically gets it, and then did his second medium advance to get within range of the hammer, and will be spending 1 point of power to pick that up for those Spider Foes. So it's over to the Web Warriors and over to Spider-Man, in which he's starting off his turn by spending 3 power to play All Webbed Up, and that will affect both Goblin and Fisk. So after All Webbed Up, Spider-Man followed that up with a Spider Strike into Green Goblin, which got through for 1 point of damage. That gave him just enough power to spend 2 for Web Swing, so he could follow that up with another Spider Strike, this time rolling 9 die, and that got through, which would have done 7 points of damage to Green Goblin. Needless to say, he's dazed and has dropped his hammer next to Spider-Man, who then followed up by paying 1 of those power he just gained to use his leadership to move Fisk within 1 of himself, so he could spend another power to automatically flip that console. So he's had quite an effective turn. He might have just tried to save the day for those Web Warriors. So then it was Fisk who retaliated with a short movement and then spent 3 power for Hail to the King. And that in total did 4 points of damage to Spider-Man, who has been dazed, so he's dropped his hammer next to Kingpin, who of course is going to pay a power to pick it up, paid 1 to interact with the console to secure it for those spider foes, and so it's just down to Daredevil, although I think that's pretty much game right there for those pesky spider foes. So Daredevil really needs to get one of those hammers off of those spider foes, and his only course of action was really to do 2 baton hooks into Doc Ock, and it only got through for 1 point of damage, and that's with 2. So unfortunately it's down to Lizard to end the game, and I'm pretty sure that is game at the end of round 3. So the Lizard just decided to activate and then unactivate rather than doing any attacks into Daredevil or Doctor Strange, as they have more than enough points to win the game at the end of the round. And here is how the board looks at the end of the round. You have the Spider Foes holding on to 3 hammers. Kingpin has 2 of them and Doc Ock has the 3rd. As for those Web Warriors, Daredevil's holding on to 1. But the big deal is those consoles, and the Spider Foes have all 3 of them. So at the end of round number 3, you have the Web Warriors just scoring 1 victory point thanks to Daredevil, but the Spider Foes will be scoring 6, taking them to 16, which is necessary to win, as they hold 3 consoles and 3 of the hammers.